Stephen, an ordinary office worker, faces a shocking accusation on a crowded train. As he fights to clear his name, the situation takes an unexpected turn. With the truth hidden beneath the surface, Stephen must confront his past and uncover a surprising connection that changes everything. Suddenly, in the crowded train, a high school girl shouted at me, "You're a molester." What? There must be some mistake. I denied it with all my might, but I was forcibly removed at the next stop. In the station office, the high school girl started saying this.
If you pay $1,000 in compensation, I'll drop the charges.
I couldn't believe what I heard when she said that. I have no intention of paying a large sum to settle. Please call the police. Hearing this, the high school girl clicked her tongue. Can you tell me which hand was it? When the police asked, the high school girl said,
The right hand.
she answered clearly and confidently. When I showed the police officer my right hand, "What you hand is?" Everyone there was stunned. No one could have imagined that, shortly after, the hidden connection between the high school girl and me would be revealed. My name is Stephen. I am just an ordinary office worker. Despite having been with the company for many years and holding the position of supervisor, to be honest, my salary isn't great. It's probably around the average for my age group, or maybe even a bit below. Considering the workload and the pay, saying I'm satisfied would be a lie, but I think this harsh reality suits me perfectly. Because I have a past I need to atone for. On rainy days, I always remember that day. 20 years ago, my first love and I broke up during a heavy downpour. Today, it was raining heavily, and even though I managed to leave work on time, the subway was packed and cramped. What bad luck. As I thought this, I managed to squeeze onto the subway. Staring at the window as the rain pounded against it, I couldn't help but think about that day. Even though I know that regretting it won't change anything, I can't stop myself from thinking about it. Realizing this, I told myself, forget it, let's just think about what to have for dinner tonight. Single, living alone. I rarely cook for myself when I'm busy. Just when I was finally able to shift my thoughts from pointless regrets to reality,
Oh my God. You're a molester.
I heard that voice right nearby. In this damp, crowded subway, it's unbelievable that someone is being accused of such behavior. I turned my gaze toward the voice, bemused by the accusation aimed at an unseen pervert. It seemed the voice came from the high school girl. It must take a lot of courage for a victim to speak up. She must have summoned quite a bit of bravery. Just then, I noticed something strange. Because her gaze was directed right at me. Of course, I haven't done anything wrong, and to avoid such misunderstandings, I always hold onto the straps with both hands. That hasn't changed, so I can confidently say there's no way I could be mistaken for a pervert. I understood that her words were directed at someone else entirely, not me. However,
What are you looking so confused for? I'm talking about you.
the high school girl glared at me and shouted, "What? This must be some kind of mistake." Although I was bewildered by the unbelievable situation, denying it was my only option. Because I hadn't done anything. Even if my claims were true, overturning this situation wouldn't be easy. Even a woman in the same uniform as the girl accusing me joined in.
I saw it. He groped her.
The situation escalated with that. Everyone around was completely convinced I was a pervert, and I was forcibly removed at the next stop. I still had no choice but to deny it, but would continuing to do so even prove my innocence? Was my life going to end because of a false accusation? These thoughts were racing through my mind. It's unbearable, but maybe this is the punishment for that day. Whenever trouble arises, I tend to think like this. It's a bad habit of mine.
Pervert. Admit it.
Even after stepping onto the platform, the two high school girls were still furious. I was so confused. I didn't do anything. So, at this moment, the real culprit is probably still on that subway, smirking to themselves. I was forced to admit that I touched the girl. When the commotion caught the attention of a station employee, I was taken to the station office. From the way the station employee acted, it seemed they completely believed I was a pervert. Well, considering the situation, it's not surprising. After about 30 minutes of arguing in the station office, the high school girl said this.
All right. If you admit to being a molester right here, I'll agree to settle this matter.
What do you mean? I was somewhat taken aback that the term settle was coming from a high school girl.
I've been scared, and I don't want to escalate this further. But if I just let it go, you might do it again. If you pay me $1,000, I'll settle this.
Hearing this, my discomfort grew even more. However, the station employee also went along with the high school girl's demands. Look, the victim is offering to settle this. Isn't it better to accept the settlement while you can? If it gets out that you're a molester, it might ruin your life. They never listen to my side. Instead, they keep coming to admit that I touched her. But my response remained unchanged. Perhaps this incident is divine retribution, but I still can't agree to something I didn't do. I truly haven't done anything, and since this is completely false, I'm not going to pay a large sum to settle it. I want the truth to come out, so please call the police. The station employee and the high school girl were both surprised when I said that. But the girl continued talking.
What? I'm offering to settle it, and you still want to call the police? Are you crazy?
She shouted angrily. Yes, I haven't done anything, so there's nothing that would trouble me if the police come. Or is there something troubling for you? Hearing my words, the high school girl clicked her tongue in frustration, clearly irritated by my response. Then the police arrived. I was honestly worried about being wrongly accused, but the police calmly listened to both sides of the story. To the high school girl who claimed she was groped, "Can you tell me which hand was it?" The high school girl confidently replied,
It was his right hand. I saw it with my own eyes, so there's no mistake.
At this point, I was certain. She wasn't mistaken or misinterpreting me as the culprit. She was lying. So, do you have any witnesses or evidence that can prove you didn't? Most people probably don't. To avoid such misunderstandings, I always keep both hands on the handrails. I see. There might be passengers on the same train who witnessed something. However, finding someone willing to testify isn't easy. As the police officer said this, I looked at the high school girl, and she had a smug expression on her face. She didn't look like someone who had just been harassed. So, does this count as evidence? Saying this, I removed my right hand prosthetic in front of everyone. The police officer, station staff, the high school girls, everyone at the scene looked shocked. What? You hand is? I lost my right hand in an accident a few years ago, so I've been living with this prosthetic. I can't feel anything with it, so it's impossible for me to grope someone with my right hand. I see. After that, the high school girl kept trying to find reasons to frame me as the culprit, but given the inconsistencies in her claims, it was actually the high school girl who came under police investigation. Later, I found out from the police that they were habitual offenders who made a lot of money from false molestation claims. I had suspected something was off, but I was shocked by how deep it went. However, that day's surprises didn't end there. Once my suspicion of molestation was cleared, I provided my contact information to the police and was allowed to leave without further issues. The high school girls were suggested to go to the police station for questioning, and their parents were called.
I'm Maya's mother. I apologize for everything my daughter has done.
Seeing the woman who appeared in the station office, I was rendered breathless. No matter how many years pass, I could never forget that face.
What the hell are you doing here, old hag?
The high school girl, Maya, spoke harshly to her mother.
We can't just ignore this. I'm truly sorry for the trouble.
The mother apologized profusely to the station staff and the police. Even though there were doubts about the false accusation, her overly humble response felt odd. Maybe she knew more about the situation. As I watched, Maya's mother finally turned her gaze towards me. Her expression mirrored the disbelief I had felt moments earlier. Given the awkward circumstances, I wasn't sure what to say, so I gave a small, awkward smile. She responded with a hesitant smile of her own. I thought I'd never see her again. Megan was the woman I could never forget, my first love. I met Megan when I was a freshman in college. She was a 24-year-old employee at my part-time jobs. Megan, who was 24 at the time, worked as an employee at my part-time job. Though I was only 18, my feelings for her were sincere. Initially, she brushed off my advances, but my persistent efforts paid off, and we started dating that summer when I was 19. I was serious enough to think about marrying her someday. However, 6 months into our relationship, that day came unexpectedly. By then, I knew Megan often didn't feel well. Even when we were together, she would often be suddenly struck by nausea. I worried she might be sick when she struggled even to go out on dates, but one day, I found something at her home. It was an ultrasound picture of a baby. At that time, my mental maturity was not enough to understand, but if her recent health problems were due to pregnancy, it all made sense. When she woke up, feeling unwell and lying in bed, I excitedly asked her about it. "Are you pregnant?" Though I was surprised, the idea of a child between me and someone important was incredibly joyful. However, Megan had a shocked expression, completely opposite to joy.
Why? That's not true.
"Then what is this?" She quickly snatched the ultrasound photo from my hands.
It has nothing to do with you, Stephen. Go home.
I honestly didn't understand why she was angry. Of course, I had no intention of leaving, but I was somewhat forcefully pushed out of her home. What was Megan angry about? Had I asked insensitively? There were so many questions on my mind. I thought about various things, but I couldn't find the answer without asking her directly. Megan ignored my contact for a while, and the reply came 2 weeks later. On the day we finally had a chance to meet, it was pouring rain.
Let's break up.
As soon as I entered the cafe where we were meeting, she said those words. "What? Are you serious?" I couldn't hide my confusion at such unexpected words. "Why? What do you mean?" Until that day when I asked about the pregnancy, I thought we were getting along well. Although Megan's health was poor, we spent time together despite her condition, so there shouldn't have been a reason to break up. Megan seemed to be choosing her words carefully and took a while to speak. Frustrated, I said, "Let's raise the baby together. I know we are still young, but I really want to marry you someday. I promise to do my best. I swear to make you and the baby happy. So please." I expressed my determination, but Megan shook her head while looking down.
It's too much to take away your future. I will raise the child alone. I just came to tell you that.
She said this and immediately stood up and left. I should have chased after her. Even if I couldn't find the right words, even if I didn't know what the right answer was, I should have stood up and stopped her. But I couldn't do that back then. The weight of that single phrase was literally heavy, and my immature self was a burden to her. I thought about it deeply. More than that, I had to chase after her. By the time I realized it, it was already too late. Even outside the cafe, she was nowhere to be found, and she didn't answer my calls. She had likely blocked me. When I visited her home, she had already moved out. No matter how heavy the burden, I wanted to be with her. I wanted to raise the child together. I was never able to convey that to her. 18 years passed. I don't know the name or gender of the child from that time, but she should be an 18-year-old high school student now. Maya, who accused me of being a molester, is 18 years old. Most likely, or almost certainly she is, my daughter. A few days after the incident, I received a call from Megan. It was a moment when I was glad I hadn't changed my phone number for so long. I wanted to discuss many things, but all she focused on was her daughter. As the police told me, it wasn't the first time Maya had made a false accusation on the train. Though Maya apparently refused to apologize, Megan repeatedly said sorry to me. But for me, none of that mattered anymore. Hey, is she the baby you were carrying when we broke up? Just like back then, she remained silent. But I had decided that if I ever had the chance to meet her again, I would act in a way that I wouldn't regret. I would do anything I could for the sake of both of them. Can we meet just once? I want to talk. Honestly, I was prepared for her to refuse, but Megan surprisingly agreed. And a few days later, I was about to speak with her alone for the first time in 18 years. Arriving at the restaurant in front of the station, I sat at a table while waiting for Megan, who arrived a bit late.
I'm sorry. I kept you waiting.
It had been 18 years. Sure, she had aged, but she still looked a lot like her younger self and hadn't changed much. I never dreamed that one day I would be sitting across from Megan. However, this was not the time for such idle thoughts. While I had lived a mundane life, regretting the past, she had endured the much harder task of raising a child alone. I needed to apologize for not being able to take responsibility for both of our lives. But, as I thought this over, I suddenly realized something. I'm sorry. I should have asked you this before I asked you to meet me. Are you married? Was it okay to call you out today? Megan, with a smile and a furrowed brow, responded.
Thank you for your concern. I've never been married, and I don't have a partner, so it's fine.
Megan said. Honestly, while I was relieved, it pained me even more to know she had really been raising the child alone for these 18 years. How much better it would have been if I could have been there beside her. Megan then shared the story of the past 18 years. When she was dating me, she worked as a pastry chef at a restaurant. With the help of her mother, she balanced work and raising a child. When Maya was 10 years old, she opened her own bakery. Maya was a straightforward, bright, and kind child during her early years. She willingly took on household chores to help her busy mother and always thought of her. But things changed when Maya entered high school. She began to hang out with the wrong crowd and started coming home much later. Of course, Megan reprimanded her, but Maya's rebellious phase only worsened. When Megan checked her room, Maya had expensive items that Megan knew she couldn't have bought with a student's part-time job. Megan finally confronted Maya about it.
How are you affording these expensive things? Where did you get them? Please be honest, Maya.
But Maya never explained the reason.
It's none of your business.
Megan continued her days feeling she needed to do something, but unable to act. Looking back now, it seems the money might have come from the settlement over the false accusation.
She got expelled from school and she never talked to me. Actually, I still believe in Maya. I think she's still the genuine, sincere person she's always been. But if the reason she turned to such criminal-like actions as taking money from a false accusation was my fault, if I pushed her to that point, I'm not sure how I should have approached her.
Megan, who had initially spoken calmly, seemed on the verge of tears as she continued. After saying that, she suddenly realized.
I'm sorry. I don't usually talk about these things with others, so I got emotional. I had decided not to rely on you, but I guess I was wrong.
She said. But, will you let me see Maya? I had decided what to say.
Are you sure?
Megan showed a look of surprise. I know it's too late now, but I am her father too. If there's anything I can do now, I want to do it. Please, I'm begging you. Thus, I appeared before Maya as her father after 18 years. A few weeks later, we went to Megan's house and waited for Maya to come home. She came back around 11 p.m. According to Megan, that was relatively early. Although we heard the sound of the front door opening, she went straight to her room without coming to the living room where we were. Since this was expected, Megan hurried out to speak to her.
Maya, I need to talk to you.
She called out to her.
I don't want to talk to you.
She maintained her rebellious attitude. When I stepped out,
Wait, I know you. What are you doing here?
she probably immediately remembered me as the one she almost falsely accused. With a shocked expression, She said that to me. Thank you for remembering me. But this isn't about that. Can you listen to what I have to say? I guess she was curious. Maya joined us in the living room. She sat down with a displeased expression and crossed her arms. To be blunt, I'm your father. It was so straightforward that even Megan, sitting next to me, was surprised. But the one most shocked was, of course, Maya in front of me.
What kind of joke is this?
After saying that, Maya continued, seemingly understanding.
Oh, so you're saying you two met through that incident and decided to get married? What a joke.
The idea that the person she almost falsely accused is actually her father. Such a coincidence is unimaginable. I expected her to think like that. That's why I placed a certain document in front of her. This is the result of the DNA test. I think you'll see that we are definitely related. Maya took the document without saying a word and quietly read through it. My words were not a bluff. This document indeed proves that I am her father. I anticipated that it wouldn't be immediately accepted, so I had it prepared with Megan's help. However, I'm not sure it will help Maya to open up. Maya slammed the document upright on the table and then said,
So, just because you're my father now, what does that change? What have you been doing all this time as a father? Mom worked from morning till night to raise me. You don't know that, right? Did you just make a kid and live your life without a care?
she said, raising her voice. You're right. I have no excuses. Honestly, I hadn't planned what to do now that I've revealed I'm her father. I don't know why Maya was driven to commit near criminal acts or what would be best for her. I'm unsure of how to act to help her. I didn't want to miss this chance that came after 18 years. If Megan can do something to help Maya with her suffering, is there any way to pull her out of this situation? No matter what I do now, I can't make up for the 18 years I missed. I couldn't stop Megan back then. I can't erase how pathetic I was. But still, I do love both of them. Then Megan started talking about what happened 18 years ago.
Listen, Maya. He wanted to marry me. He wanted to raise you and start a family with me many times. But I was scared. I was afraid that I would be taking away his future at just 19. That's why I disappeared from his life on my own. I thought it would be enough if I was with you. But after you were born, I realized something different. Having a family means not taking away the future, but adding so much more happiness. Just seeing you grow up, talk, and smile brings me so much joy. Maya, you've made me realize that. I should have chosen to overcome my fear and become a family of 3. It may have been me who took happiness away from you and Steven. I'm sorry, Maya. I tried my best to do everything for you. I know I wasn't the perfect mom for you. I'm really sorry.
As Megan finished speaking, a single tear fell from Maya's eye, which had been filled with anger until then. And then,
Mom, you worked so hard every day and always came home as my loving mother. Those days made me so happy. I cherished every moment. But because of that, I always worried that I might have held you back. I kept wondering if you could have opened your own shop sooner if I hadn't been born, or if my birth was the reason you and Dad separated. No one ever said that to me, but once I started thinking about it, I couldn't shake the feeling. It was unbearable.
then Maya broke down, crying uncontrollably, as if all the emotions she had held back finally poured out. Maya's delinquency might have been a way to distract herself from her anxiety. Of course, human emotions cannot be summed up in a single sentence. But deep down, she continued to cry. It must have been difficult for her to calm her own emotions.
Mom, I'm sorry for everything.
That day, Maya repeatedly apologized while being held by Megan. She might have been carrying the weight of her own guilt all along. 1 year later, after that, I used my savings to cover all the compensation for Maya's false accusation of molestation. Megan and Maya both strongly refused, but considering I hadn't contributed to her tuition or living expenses for 18 years, it wasn't too much to give. I eventually got them to accept it. However, I had no intention of insisting on being part of their family as a father right away. Of course, I cared deeply about both of them, And sometimes I imagine what it would be like to truly become a family someday. But for now, I just want to be someone who understands, helping her find peace of mind.
Oh, you're back again? Miss me already?
Maya, now attending high school again and working part-time, noticed me as she came home, flashing a playful grin. I'm so glad we've reached a point where we can joke around like this. Well, yeah. I just wanted to see my daughter, even if it's just for a moment. It's a little embarrassing, but I'm trying to be honest about how I feel. I've spent 18 years regretting not expressing my feelings sooner, knowing that some things need to be said out loud.
Oh, really?
Maya said this as she sat down in a nearby chair. Then,
I missed you too, Dad.
she whispered softly. At that moment, I remembered what Megan had told me before.
Just seeing you grow up, talk, and smile brings me so much joy. Maya, you've made me realize that.
After 18 years of feeling that emptiness, hearing her call me Dad filled a void that's been with me for so long. It's a joy and a sense of fulfillment I've desperately needed.